Got it. We're go.
Think we're good.
All right. Well, Anthony, man, I appreciate you making some time today to get to know you.
Absolutely. Looking forward to it.
So let everybody know, where are you coming from? Where are you right now?
We're currently living in Pennsylvania,
Okay. But from Jersey originally.
but from Jersey originally. Yep,
Jersey proud, Jersey strong.
that's right.
Do you prefer PA? How is it?
It's really nice. We have a nice area, a lot of good parks and outdoor stuff to do. Um, I should say, when I was living in Jersey, our town bordered the Delaware River, so we were basically in Pennsylvania anyway. But,
Gotcha. Okay.
yeah, like in Pennsylvania a lot.
Okay. You sent me some info leading up to this interview, and there's definitely some things that I jumped out at me that I'd love to chat with you about. But how old are you right now?
32.
32. Young man. But if we rewind the clock back to high school, you played multiple sports. Of the multiple sports that you played, was there one of those that was, looking back on it, the most influential for the remainder of your life? And if so, which one was it?
I think so. Soccer was definitely my sport, my main sport. Did indoor kind of growing up, indoor soccer, and then switched to outdoor soccer as I got into high school. So that was kind of my main sport, but I'd probably say I learned the most from wrestling. So I didn't start wrestling until I was sophomore in high school.
Oh,
So
wow, that's late to start.
yeah, so we just a couple of us just were like, we're going out for the wrestling team. But we got humbled plenty of times by guys that had been wrestling for a long time. We were some of the heavier guys, just on the weight class scale. So definitely probably learned the most lessons, and got humbled the most amount of times in practice and matches. So I would say I probably learned the most from wrestling.
Okay, cool. I didn't want to lead you there, which is why I said you played multiple sports, but I was thinking that's the answer that I was expecting to hear. And I'm curious, and I did not wrestle. I'm curious to hear just a little bit about what it was that you learned and what, that carried forth, because what I always find interesting, and you were in the military, I can't wait to chat with you about that. I was in the military, and when I was going through the military, every now and then there'd be some sort of study conducted, especially like special warfare, like that. They don't want to, if they could find a way to streamline the amount of candidates that enter to get a higher graduation rate and waste less resources, that's something that they want to do. So they're always trying to pre-screen and get as much markers about people to see if they can select better candidates. And then see, did those criteria at the beginning lead to a higher graduation rate? And it never works out. There's sports background, it doesn't matter. It never works out. You can't seem to kind of figure it out. Out of all the studies they've done, from what I've heard, the only thing that ever seemed to have a correlation was that wrestlers seemed to do better in the program and graduate at a higher frequency compared to other people. And never even having wrestled, but knowing wrestlers, I'm like, yeah, that makes sense to me. Those are some of like the toughest, mentally stamina, brutal individuals that I know, but I wasn't a wrestler. So I'm curious now, from somebody who did wrestle, what was that experience like? And why was that what you selected as the sport that has maybe served you the most?
Yeah, I would say that the intangibles definitely the big things about wrestling. Of course, you're the only one out there against one other guy. So if you make a mistake, it's evident, and it's so fast paced, especially if someone's really experienced. That if you make a misstep, literally, figuratively, it's going to be shown right away to everyone, because you're the only two
Mhm.
guys out there. The other one that I was thinking of is it's everyone, like, maybe at the collegiate level, everyone's pretty buff and everything, like really jacked and everything, but
Mhm.
there was a lot of times where I'm trying to learn wrestling and do it at the same time. So I'm saying, okay, guy on the right is a slimmer guy or whatever. He's not looking like the most buff guy. The other guy, on the other hand, on the other side, is muscular. But then when the
Mhm.
match starts, the slim guy is the one that's taking it to him because of his technique. So
Sure.
that is something I figured out kind of quickly. I only did wrestling for like 3 years, but it was just kind of like a game. Like, all right, well, who's got more technique? Who's got
Matters.
more experience? the muscular part plays into it, but it wasn't like the, the thing that dictated anything.
And those conditioning sessions are just brutal,
Right.
aren't they?
Yeah. Yeah. I would say wrestling practices are like the most punishing. And then if you add in, if you're trying to cut weight, and then it's something, it's kind of like a mental toughness thing. Like you're kind of asked to go out there and perform, and you're like, it's just been brutal, brutal week or whatever. You got multiple matches in the same day. That's another one that you might have a try meet or something. You got two or
Those
three
are
wrestling
brutal
matches in the same day.
sports. Those are different things. Can't blame the offensive line, can't blame the quarterback. Like, no, no, no. You won or you lost.
Yeah, right. Exactly. Exactly.
Like that is nowhere to hide. That's really cool. So you went through high school and then actually made your way to West Point.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, graduated high school 2010, and started West Point only 10 days after I graduated high school for the initial training, and graduated in 2014.
What drew you towards entering the military post high school?
Yeah, so my family's pretty much a military family, especially on my dad's side. Grandpa on his side was in World War II, and also my dad was a career guy in the career military officer in the National Guard. So he
Okay.
did like 40 years in the National Guard.
Oh, wow.
And my uncles and that whole side of the family was basically served at some point. My sister was in the National Guard. So it's definitely a military family, but I really definitely wanted to serve, and also wanted to study engineering. So I knew West Point was a strong engineering school.
Oh, nice. What
Civil
style,
engineering.
what kind of engineering?
Yep, civil engineering is what I studied there. I was kind of always interested in that, and I knew they had a good civil engineering program. But yeah, I really wanted to just serve the country, and wanted to be around some of the best Americans out there. So applied to West Point, and luckily got appointed, and like I said, graduated in 2014. So those are a few of the factors.
And how was that? I guess that's the only experience that you know, but like I would assume pros and cons of a military academy, right? I mean,
Yeah,
from, you know, pros of a high level education that, doesn't have to come out of your pocket and some career choices afterwards and the
yeah,
benefits of discipline and being regimented, those sort of life skills. But then there's probably some cons compared to the typical freedom college experience. So in rear view, in reflection, looking back, what are the pros and cons of that military academy experience?
yeah. Definitely hit on some of them. Basically, you have a service requirement after you finish. So we had to do at least 5 years on active duty in the Army, and then you could either finish it with 3 years in the reserves, or you could stay active duty. So um, you could either say that's a service requirement, or a guaranteed job, depending on how
Right.
you look at it. But that's part of the oath that you do in one of your later years, that you commit to that service commitment. Um, so definitely that. One of the big things I think is, one of the generals at some point was just said, like, every cadet's going to be an athlete. So went through a lot
Okay.
of physical tests, physical courses, a lot of physical challenges there at West Point. It's actually part of your GPA, which is something that's different
Oh,
from
interesting. I
college.
didn't know that.
So yeah, you're graded for academics, physical courses and tests, basically, and then you have a military grading scale that you have every semester. So actually,
What were some of the physical tests that you would do? Is it the Army PT test or different things?
yeah. So every 6 months, basically every semester, you have to take the Army PT test, which at the time was 2 minutes of push-ups, 2 minutes of sit-ups, and a 2 mile run. So
I
fairly
took that. Even though I was in the Navy, I took that test because I had to take it when we went to jump school at Fort Benning.
right. Yeah, exactly. So that was the test at the time, and I told you a little bit about in the email. It had changed by the time I left the Army, um, but basically we had two other aspects, which were all the Department of Physical Education classes that we had. We had about two of those a semester. So that consisted of boxing, combatives. We had something called survival swimming, where they basically shut out the lights and drop you in a pool with all your gear, and you have to
Nice.
make your way to the other side without drowning. Um, another course is called military movement. It's basically gymnastics class. And it also has this component called the indoor obstacle course test, which is this crazy obstacle course that you have to run in a certain amount of time, which
That's pretty awesome.
yeah, so it's that's probably, thinking about it now, it's probably a really good test of fitness. I think everyone despised it while we were there because it's just
Of course.
so terrible. But it just looking at it objectively, it seems like a good test of fitness. Yeah, and so we had some classroom stuff as well for fitness, like what I call it now is how to program PT for soldiers and stuff like that. Yeah.
Gotcha. Okay. Interesting.
And then the other aspect
That's
is you
cool.
have to play a sport.
Okay.
So either Division I sports, which I guess another pro of attending West Point is I met my wife there, so she actually played Division I soccer.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah. But if you're not on D1, you play intramurals. So get a whole grab bag of intramurals with each semester you do an intramural basically.
What did you gravitate towards for sport?
So if you're freshmen are called plebes, so they kind of get last pick. So I wound up with basketball my plebe year because I was kind of last in line to pick. But usually went for soccer. One time did rugby. They kind of got rid of that because of some injuries, people getting injured.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, mainly soccer, outdoor soccer was the one I would pick usually.
Did you intend to use, you wanted to go to college for civil engineering, but was there a occupation in the Army which was going to utilize that degree, or did you have aspirations to do something totally different in the Army?
Yeah, so we get to pick our branch for the Army basically in your last year. So I wanted to be an engineer. Weirdly enough, Army engineering has to do with building, but also destroying everything. So a lot
At
of
the
what
Army Corps of Engineers, the famous Army Corps of Engineers.
absolutely. So I actually work for them now as a civilian, which is
Oh, nice.
funny you mentioned those, but funny you mentioned them. But in uniform, you can either basically destroy everything or build stuff. So most of what I did in the military was centered around demolitions or training to let the infantry get to where they need to go. So that involved working with mine detection and stuff like that. That's kind of what we trained on.
Okay.
So there's different. I also got to do some construction type things in the Army as well when I was in uniform. So it's pretty broad, but I knew I wanted to be an engineer in the Army as well after graduation.
So how did the Army fitness test change from what you said originally to well, how did it evolve?
Sure. So like I said, when we started, it was just 2, 2, and 2. It's 2 minutes push-ups, 2 minutes sit-ups, 2 minutes run, or 2 mile run. Sorry, it basically had to be in that order. So the critiques on that, of course, there's no equipment. I guess that's a good and a bad thing, but
Sure.
it's just body weight stuff. But basically, as I was started to leave the active duty, the Army created this Army combat fitness test. And all throughout the time I was in the Army, things seemed to be tending towards what we probably call like CrossFit style workouts. If somebody wanted to plan some kind of brutal event for the unit morale, it was like, pick this up and run with it, or
Right.
do as many deadlifts with this can or whatever as possible. Everything seemed to converge towards that style. So in the middle there, our unit got delivered this connex of just gym equipment. So they had barbells, kettlebells, dumbbells, and off the sides had pull-up bars and squat racks coming down. It was awesome. Our guy, we loved it because it was just in the parking lot and we just did our own thing. But anyway, the Army came out with the Army Combat Fitness Test, and it's basically an hour-long WOD that has these 6 events. And it started off with a deadlift. You throw a medicine ball. You do it's kind of like a hanging knee to elbows, but it's parallel to the bar. So you're
Okay.
hand over hand like that instead of like
Okay.
that. Um, some push-ups, which were unique. It's kind of like hand release push-ups, but you had to outstretch your arms.
Yeah, when you, oh, yes, yes.
Yeah,
Okay.
like a
Gotcha.
T push-up. I think they called it something like that. And then the one that probably hurts the most is this sprint drag carry is what it was called. So you had some kettlebells you had to run with 25 meters down and back, drag some plates and sprint, and you had to do some like lateral lunge type stuff, and that was timed
Okay.
as its own event. And then just to top it all off, you had to run 2 miles at the end, as
Nice.
if you
Okay.
were as if you weren't tired enough. Um, so I think one time I think it was like burned like 600-700 calories in like an hour just doing that whole thing. So the whole thing is like a progression. You only have so much time between each event.
Okay.
The Army said you had this much time to do the whole thing.
I will admit I'm pretty out of touch with whatever the Navy physical fitness test is or the Air Force. If I'm not mistaken, I believe the Marine Corps has been playing around with their physical fitness test. I don't know where it is at the moment, but that one that you just said on the Army side of the house, being a fit dude, been working out every day, trying to improve your strength and conditioning, IQ, and all that good stuff. When you look at that test through the lens of your eye and your mind, does it make you think it's pretty adequate? Think it's not too good? Like, well, where do you land on it?
Yeah, I thought the test was really good actually. There was a lot of there's been some changes to it from congressional mandates and stuff. So based on some initial results, a couple things have been changed, and I can talk about that in a second, which is um, interesting because they kept making us test it so they could collect data.
There you go.
I think now it's kind of official, more of an official test, I believe. But I thought it was a good test. So there was a lot of pushback with the deadlift. Basically, I guess, kind of on the misconception that it's dangerous.
Mm, sure. What was the
Everyone.
loading? Do you know? Like, what was the?
So the minimum was it was a 3 rep max on a hex bar,
Okay.
and I believe the minimum was about 150. So the
Okay.
standards were the same for men and women. So that's something to keep into account as
You
well.
had to pull a triple at 150.
Yep. But to
Okay.
max it out, it was 340.
Okay. Okay. Interesting.
So there was some pushback on that, but I thought the use of the hex bar will balance people a little bit more and maybe
Yeah.
mitigate some of that.
I'm sure there was some fascinating technique. Um, but I do agree that the hex bar probably was more user friendly than
Right.
the typical barbell. But hey, you know what? Good on him for putting the deadlift in there. Like to have the actual courage to be like to even put that in.
Right.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah. Yeah. I I thought it was more approachable as well. But yeah, I think that was a big step in the right direction personally because um, you would have the push up, sit up, and running specialists, and maybe
Sure, yeah.
they couldn't move any weight, but they got a high score on that test, but didn't translate to this test.
100%. Yeah, you could be a bodyweight specialist, super fast on the run, and then out in the field, if you have to do, if your buddy goes down and he's 200 pounds plus his gear, you can't move him. Well, that's not cool. What does the deadlift remain after this congressional stuff, or what were the changes or
So the
modifications?
big change was a lot of people were having trouble with that hanging knee raise. They just called it the leg tuck, but
Pesky leg tuck.
the leg tuck. Yeah, so the minimum was one, and there was some people just having trouble with it. So the alternate event turned into 3 minutes of a plank, um, which is kind of
Yes.
insane too.
Is that the minimum or maxing it out?
So I think I think that was the minimum. So it was like if you,
Oh,
at that point, this
right,
might
yeah,
have
yeah.
changed a little bit, but
But they would
it
have
was kind of
preferred the
like
meantime.
if you couldn't get the leg tuck, it was like now you got to plank for 3 minutes to get by,
Ooh,
which is it was
that's a
tough.
good plank.
Tough, yeah. Um, yeah. So I mean, in 1 minute we'll have you going for sure.
Yeah, for
But yeah,
sure. Interesting. Well, we all know how challenging, knees to elbows are, be it strict or kipping or whatnot. So I mean, for fit people, that
Right.
I can see that leg tuck, whatever it was called, like being really challenging for a lot of people, but you certainly didn't make their life any easier with a 3-minute blank hold.
No, no, it was almost like a
Careful what you
discouraging
wish for,
people.
you
Yeah,
just might get it.
yeah, yeah.
So is that where it is currently? There's a plank instead of the leg tuck?
I lost track of it myself.
Sure.
Um, I'm not exactly sure. I'm not exactly sure, but that was right as I was going off of the reserves.
As
That's
a former soccer player, what was your 2-mile run time?
so I really, when I was a young guy, I could do like 13 minutes pretty casually.
That's cooking. Casually,
Um,
it's cooking.
13:30 maybe, but now I'm, it's getting up there every time I go for a run. I feel like.
Oh,
I think that's the one thing I would switch about the new test is the 2 mile run just seems like a gut check at the end. Maybe a little too long. Maybe I would do like an 800 or something or a 1200 personally, but
mm-hmm.
I don't think anyone ever quite got the applicability of running 2 miles as part of for me anyway.
No, yeah, you could make a serious case that that's normally what doesn't occur. That doesn't occur in the actual
Right.
work that a soldier has to do. It's either carrying weight on your back for an extended distance or, you know, sprint to cover, do something there, sprint to cover, do something there. Sprint is like it's intervals, short sprint intervals, or just carry something heavy for a long time. It's not you got nothing on your body and you're just going for 2 miles.
Yeah, right.
No,
Yeah.
understandable. So you do your time in the army, you wind up getting out of there, you stayed in the reserves a bit, and then at some point in time, fitness has been a part of your life for a while. You kind of transition to working out at home.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
So
you went through a few evolutions of that.
yeah, so the army is great because they give you free gym facility to work out in. And like I said, I really think I got into it when that Connex was delivered. So we
Hmm.
were doing a little bit of CrossFit before that. Kind of left the gym we were at, but then they brought this like free CrossFit box to our parking lot, and it was like
Awesome.
we could work out there and we could do whatever we agreed to do as a platoon or whatever. Um, but when I moved to Missouri for the army, they had one of the best gyms I thought because it was just a huge open gym basically for CrossFit,
Nice.
and it was just,
Nice.
which you don't usually see in the army. It's usually more
Hmm.
like set up like a Globo gym with the machines. This was an old basketball court, and they must have came across a bunch of money and bought all these rigs, plates, everything. It was just a huge
That's
CrossFit
cool.
box. So as I'm taking advantage of that, I was doing this workout with rope climbs, and I basically wound up with this abscess on my leg from I got
Oh
like rope burn from
man.
it. Yeah. So that made me build my own stuff at home in the driveway, and that turned out to be a good move because COVID happened not that long after that. But
Right.
um, yeah, made the thing out of 2x4s, pull up bar, squat rack, and people were looking at me like I was just crazy because I was just
Of
out there
course.
working out in the driveway. Um, yeah, and then ever since then, basically, we found space in the house to set up, accumulated a lot of gear. So we're in the garage now, which is cool.
And you said for a long time, maybe post army, working at home, that you were doing your own programming. What led you to try to find something like Linchpin?
Yeah, I was basically just picking cherry picking stuff off the internet for a while, kind of doing my own thing. Try to keep track of my strength movements kind of on my own. Um, I had done a couple of Linchpin workouts, in the driveway before I like the test. I think it was test 6 with
Okay.
the ball balls and everything, handstand
Yeah,
push-ups. That was tough. Uh, Tough to manage. I think I went out too hard to begin with, but
it happens.
yeah. But switching over to Linchpin, I just found the podcast. I think
Okay.
must have been Linchpin Conversations, I guess.
Okay.
But I looked into the programming and the price, and and the app and everything, and it seemed like a good fit. I really like the podcast because at one point I was really into the sport of CrossFit, if you will, like just the
Yep.
people, the games, and everything like that. I kind of got tired of following it all, but the Linchpin just seemed really approachable and everything like that. And I was like, I feel like I need something more structured now that I'm getting more gear, working out, working out more consistently after the army. So yeah, I started the private track in 2021, June of 2021.
Yeah, it's been
Um,
a bit.
been 3 years now, which is cool.
And are
And yeah,
you,
I've been on there ever since. So I just think I just passed 750 workouts for
con-
Linchpin. So
congratulations. And do you, different people find it easy? The home gym has its pros and cons, just like everything does. Some people struggle to be self-disciplined or motivated and walk out there and do it. They can't do it unless there's a group. Some people love the flexibility and independence of the home gym. Where do you land on that? Did you have to develop that sort of daily resolve to walk out there, or just not a big deal, you got it?
I think I don't have too much of an issue going out now, but I think maybe I built that habit up with COVID
Mm,
because we didn't have a choice.
right.
But right now, no, it's fairly simple. Like for me anyway, to get out there. As far as the motivation side of it, we're both me and my wife are value physical fitness, so the kids are always out there. It's another aspect I like of having it. They can see us working out. They know that's the gym.
Yep.
So yeah, not too much. I think I just kind of built that habit maybe through COVID, and I just really like to get out there and work out after I sit a lot at work.
Understood. Yeah.
Ready to get out there.
And you're a girl dad, got a couple little girls.
Yep, two girls. So I'm outnumbered 3-1 in our house with ladies versus guys.
Do they find what you're doing out in the garage, or maybe the older one, or even the young one, like interesting at all? Or do you go out there and do they kind of play and mess around at the same time, or you do sneak out there when they're occupying themselves, in other activities?
Yeah. I try to. They're definitely interested in it. They like to come out and kind of imitate what we're doing. So my wife teaches some fitness classes, and she'll do garage gym workouts as well.
Oh,
Uh,
that's cool.
but they're interested in it. They're very observant. So I try to, if we're doing overhead lifts or something, try to tell them, you
Right, right.
can't just come running through here because that might be
100%. Yep.
catastrophic. But if something's fairly simple, like just a dumbbell, something that doesn't take up a ton of space, or a kettlebell, they like to get their bike set up and get the little stand so they can pedal and stuff like that. So yeah, they're
Very
definitely
cool.
interested in it. So it's cool to see them pick up on pick up on what we're doing.
Well, you're setting good habits, the same kind of habits that I hope to instill to my kids and my daughter as well. I guess, kind of in closing, if anybody's watching this, you've tried a whole bunch of different things from the military to civilian to group to home to any kind of lessons learned that maybe, you wish it took you too long to figure out that you had known 5 or 7 years ago.
Yeah, I would say definitely. And I guess the big reason why I like Linchpin is you want to find something that's sustainable. When I was doing my own stuff, of course, what was kind of posted online was like games workouts and open workouts, and you can't be doing those 5 days a week or whatever because you get really blown out kind of quickly. So even I think you have mentioned this before. Even if there's something you're not feeling like you can do the full workout or something, just modify it or scale it and just keep
100%.
keep the momentum going. Had to do that a couple of
Consistency.
times recently. Yeah. Um, but yeah, definitely overarching picture is find something sustainable. So that's kind of why I'm drawn to Linchpin.
Yeah. Well, appreciate you being a part of it, man. And thank you for sharing your story. I think people will enjoy it.
It's great talking to you for sure.
All right, Anthony. Well, I will see you online, my friend.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you.